share my screen here. Well, I appreciate the introduction, and without any further ado, I will get started. So again, my name is Paige Tucker. I'm the founder and CEO of ProStar. ProStar is known as the world leader in the development of precision mapping solutions. We have developed a mapping solution that runs on a standard mobile device, including a smartphone or a tablet, that will provide precision mapping down to the centimeter. Our flagship product is called PointMan. It is a mobile and cloud application that is offered on a SaaS model. I ask that you do review our forward-looking statements and also our confidential information disclosures. PointMan is patented and it's commercialized. It provides the ability to capture, record, and display the precise location of critical infrastructure, both above ground and below ground, including utilities and pipelines. We have an existing and growing list of marquee clients in multiple verticals, including Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, some of the largest engineering and surveying firms in the United States, and we've recently expanded into the municipal market as well as the utility market. We have a veteran management team with extensive experience in the development of software, including cloud and mobile technologies, as well as extensive experience in the capital markets. I have a 25 years experience in the development of innovative technologies with the focus on data management and geographic information systems, which is a big fancy word for digital mapping. A couple of years ago, realizing that we had something of extensive value that could have implications globally, I brought in a chief operating officer to serve as my right-hand man. The gentleman that I brought in is Vasa Dasan. Vasa is the former chief technology officer of Sun Microsystems, which in its heyday was the largest technology company in the world. One of Vasa's most impressive accolades is he's responsible for migrating Wall Street to the internet. Jonathan Richards serves as our CFO. Jonathan has extensive experience managing the CFO responsibilities for many high-profile public companies that currently trade on the TSX, as well as the TSX Venture, but today he serves as our full-time CFO. I recently recruited Jason Marchuk to serve as our Senior Vice President of Sales because we're moving away from R&D into sales and marketing. He's the former application sales manager for Oracle's construction and engineering global business units. Our focus is critical infrastructure and all of the market sectors that are involved in either owning the critical infrastructure, constructing it, or maintaining and managing it. Somewhat unprecedented for an early stage startup technology company to have any number of patents that have been issued. Definitely unprecedented to have as an extensive IP portfolio as ProStar. We have 20 patents that have been issued. These cover the methods and processes required to precisely capture, record, and display the location of buried utilities and pipelines. There's 2.4 million miles of paved roads in the United States. And as we know from all the campaigning coming out of the White House, that infrastructure is becoming dilapidated and in serious need of repair and replacement. Currently, there is an infrastructure bill that should be passed any day. It's supported by the Democrats and the Republicans. It's going to be between $1 to $1.5 trillion to address not only the above ground infrastructure, but also the below ground infrastructure, including our water systems, as well as our sewage systems. The reason I bring that up is because you cannot work on the above ground infrastructure or the below ground infrastructure without impacting one another. This image provides an example of what it would look like in any major city if you removed the pavement. I refer to it as a spaghetti bowl of utilities and pipelines that have been haphazardly placed into the ground over the last 100 years. In fact, in the United States, the majority of our utilities and pipelines were put into the ground between 60 to 100 years ago, well before there was any type of regulation or compliance, and it was never intended to serve the size of population that we have today. There's over 35 million miles of buried utilities and pipelines in the US alone. And the majority of those utilities and pipelines are buried below the 2.4 million miles of paved roads. So you can imagine how congested it is becoming below those paved roads with all of the utilities and pipelines that are buried below them. 500,000 times a year, we hit those utilities and pipelines during construction activities. That equates to hitting a utility or a pipeline 1 minute of every working day. And when you hit a utility or a pipeline, some bad things can happen, including major flooding, traffic delays, dangerous petroleum products seeping into our water systems, or in worst case scenario, if you hit a high pressure gas line, you can have an explosion, which often injures the worker, the public, or causes loss of life, which I would argue is happening far too frequently, and that number is only increasing with each year. It's estimated that we spend $10 billion a year trying to identify where these utilities and pipelines are located, and yet we have over $30 billion of damages as a result of hitting them. So whatever we're doing, it's not very effective. Part of the problem is that 60 to 100 years ago, we had very little regard or concern where the utilities or pipelines were being placed into the ground. But it might be surprising to you that over the last 50 years, the way that we manage where utilities and pipelines are located is on paper maps. These are called as-built drawings. These are the original planning and design drawings of how the utilities and pipelines are intended to go into the ground, and yet how we plan and intend them to go in the ground and how they actually go into the ground are two different case scenarios for many reasons, including ground conditions, or maybe the area that they were going to place them is too congested, so they'll just place them over on the other side of the road. Then they bury them, and then the regulators look at where they're buried, and as long as it's close enough, they sign off on these as-built drawings, which creates an issue because they become the system of record of where the utility and pipeline is buried, and they're inaccurate by nature. The way that we actually locate where utilities and pipelines are is somewhat of an antiquated process. We hire low-level workers with very little training or certification to come out and locate where the utility lines are located. They use what's called an electromagnetic utility and pipe locating device, which the majority of the time will locate where a utility or pipeline is located. But the problem is they use a spray paint can to mark where the utility is. At best, it's accurate to a meter. In addition to that, we really don't know if they located the correct utility. Often they can mistake a fiber optic line for an electrical line. We don't know if they located a utility at all. These spray paint marks can last up to a year. And we know that sometimes if they can't find where the utility or pipeline is located, they'll just paint over top of the existing paint mark. In fact, the construction companies, engineering and surveying firms, and excavating companies that take on the liability do not trust these paint marks. What they do is they bring in these big Vac Trucks. These Vac Trucks will dig a hole in the pavement over top of the paint mark. They'll pull all the dirt out with that giant vacuum system, and they'll do this to try and expose where the utility is, because the risk of hitting a pipeline, a fiber optic line, or a gas line is far too great. So they're trying to expose exactly where that utility is located. If they can't find it, they'll move over a little bit and drill another hole in the ground, and they'll continue this process until they actually find that utility. The challenge is it's a very onerous process, damages the pavement, very time consuming, and very expensive. This is what it looks like when you drill one of those holes in the ground. You can see how many utility lines and pipelines can be stacked up beside each other and on top of each other. And this is only getting worse with each passing year. In fact, in the United States, we're placing over 300,000 miles of fiber optic into the ground every year. In addition, this is the antiquated and onerous workflow and business practices that have been well entrenched in the construction industry for well over 25 years. You locate where the utility is using the electromagnetic locate device, or you hydrovac and place a hole in the ground. You send surveyor crews out there to survey in the paint mark or the hole in the ground. You upload it to a PC out in the field. Someone has to review the data, and then you export it to the office where it's imported into a CAD or GIS system where the data is finally qualified, and then it is finally sent out to the field where the field crews can use that information to make a more intelligent business decision. At best, this takes 2 days. On average, 2 weeks. It can take up to 2 months. With all of the modern technology we have today that is streamlining the workflow processes and business practices of other industries and creating automation, you would think that the construction industry would also adopt modern technology. But they're known as a laggard, which means they're ripe for disruption. That's why we developed PointMan, a simple mobile app that streamlines all of those onerous workflow processes and business practices. So how do we do it? It's pretty simple. We take the electromagnetic locate device, we pair it to a standard mobile device running PointMan, then we pair it through Bluetooth technology to a precision GPS receiver. So this is not the chip that's embedded in the device, which will provide 1 to 3 meter accuracy. This is a precision GPS receiver that will provide centimeter accuracy. Once the data is captured onto the mobile device, it goes up to our cloud, where we run it through our algorithms, our post-processing, and make that information readily available to whoever needs it in the field or the office in a matter of a few seconds. This is what it looks like. When they're out in the field collecting the data and capturing where the utility and pipeline is located, we capture that information digitally on the mobile device. And then we capture all the pertinent information that's available from both the electromagnetic utility and pipe locate device and the precision GPS receiver. In that white box, you can see what we call pedigree, which is the metadata that we're capturing, which includes what type of locate device it is, what's the depth, the currency, the frequency, which tells us what type of utility it is. If you scroll down, you'll see vertical precision, 1.3 centimeters. How do we know that? Because we're capturing 9 satellites. We can tell you which constellation they're in. Then we capture the NEMA string data, which is the accuracy data provided from each of the satellites. We calculate all of that in the cloud, and that's how we provide the accuracy level. We can also take their existing data from their system of record on where they think their utilities and pipelines are, and then compare that to where it's actually located. At a click of a button, we can measure the distance of the discrepancy, and all of this can be viewed in real time in the office. So if they have 50 field crews out collecting data, and it can be in 50 different states, in the office, they can actually watch the field crews in real time collecting the data. If they feel that the data that we're capturing is much more accurate than what they have in their system of record, at a click of a button, they can consume that data into their system of record and update their records. So we provide significant value to the utility and pipeline company who own the assets. So our process is pretty simple. Capture the data, goes to the cloud. It's available to whoever needs it in real time. A couple of years ago, realizing we had something of significant value, we went out and showed it to 2 major clients, what we call early adopters and influencers in the market, including Kiewit, the largest infrastructure construction company in North America, who adopted our technology and has now moved us out into other divisions, including light rail, water, and power. We also landed CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, who owns the I-70 project that Kiewit was on, which was a $2 billion project and will last up to 5 years. On January 14th of this year, CDOT actually mandated our software into state law. So if you are a construction company, engineering surveying firm, utility company, pipeline company, or municipality, you're required by law to identify where the utilities and pipelines are located and provide that information back to the state. Both Kiewit and CDOT have provided us tremendous credibility and visibility. And recently, we've signed KCI, one of the largest engineering surveying firms in the United States, Kramer, another large infrastructure and construction company that does billion-dollar projects for multiple DOTs in the United States, as well as WSB, one of the largest engineering surveying firms in the US. And then just recently, which I'm excited about, we're starting to see the adoption and ramp up that every CEO of any early stage technology company would like to realize. For example, we've signed New Hampton, a small municipality in Iowa, which has most of their assets on paper maps, the as-builts that are stored in filing drawers, just as most municipalities that are small in the United States is the way that they also manage their assets. As you can see, there's over 38,000 municipalities in the United States with a population of under 20,000. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us to expand into the municipal market. Recently, we signed Aberdeen, a small township in New Jersey. In the state of New Jersey, they just mandated that every municipality has to digitally provide the location of their water systems to the state. Again, most municipalities will be using paper maps. They'll be unable to be able to address that mandate. So again, huge opportunity for us, particularly in New Jersey. We recently signed T2 Engineers, one of the largest engineering surveying firms in Canada. So now we're expanding outside of the United States. We're also working with one of the largest data collection companies in Australia that also has operations in the UK. And we recently signed Zayo, which is one of the largest fiber optic companies in North America. So we're expanding also into the utility market. One of our partners is Trimble, one of the largest technology companies in the geospatial industry in the world, and one of the largest manufacturers of GPS and surveying equipment. They allowed us the highest level of integration than any other company in the world into their GPS receivers, which of course provides tremendous credibility and visibility, but also a significant distribution channel for us. In fact, almost all the major GPS manufacturers around the world have allowed us integration into their receivers, as well as the major electromagnetic locate and utility device manufacturers. Why do they allow us such integration? Simple. We improve the performance of their equipment and the value that they provide to their customers. There's 3 ways that we market our product. You can download it for free, works anywhere in the world, but you're limited to the precision of the GPS in the device. For centimeter accuracy, we only charge $295 a year, and that will pair to a precision GPS receiver and provide centimeter accuracy, but you're limited to the storage capabilities remotely on the device. For $2,495, you can buy an app that provides a full enterprise system that will integrate into legacy systems of record and provides unlimited storage. This is a disruptive technology. We're calling it the Uber app of the construction industry. And again, our apps work anywhere in the world, any language, and any currency. I'm just going to go into revenue, but anybody can obviously review that at their own leisure in our deck. So please.
Yes, let me squeeze in a couple questions here. The first one from Osmond. So he's asking you if your company is to be acquired by other bigger companies in the future. What example of the companies will be?
So there's large technology companies out there like Trimble that I mentioned, which actually is big on customer acquisition. And because we're partnered with them and we provide value to their current customers, we could potentially be an acquisition target by a company like a Trimble, or maybe a company like an Esri, which is one of our competitors in the geospatial space. So yes, I think that we are a prime target for large companies to acquire us. Number one, because we have a disruptive technology, and number two, because of our IP portfolio.
Good. The second one from Tyler. What are your current gross margin on your SaaS business?
Gross, we're at about 80%, and I expect that our margins will increase through economies of scale as we start to onboard more clients. And then, of course, our server platform, which is AWS, will actually become even cheaper.
One last question here is from the Ming here from the Chinese side, who says, moving forward, what market has the biggest potential for your business? Is that the government, city, water systems? Could that be?
It's the municipal market, not only in the United States where there's 38,000 municipalities with a population of under 20,000, that also expands globally. The majority of those cities will be using paper maps to manage their assets. And of course, we offer a full enterprise solution that manages not only their below ground infrastructure, but above ground infrastructure. And we can start out as little as $5,000 a year.
Great to hear. So thank you for your time here with us today at the conference.
It's actually my pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great day.